February 4th, 2016, a Thursday night in Dhaka, Bangladesh. A printer inside the central bank stops working. Nobody thinks much of it. Printers break all the time, right? But this printer had one job. It was supposed to spit out confirmation receipts for every international money transfer. And right now, at this exact moment, 35 transfer orders are flying through the global banking network, questing $951 million from one of the poorest countries on earth. And nobody in the building has any idea. By the time someone finally fixes that printer on Saturday morning, $81 million will have already vanished into thin air. And the people who took it, they were sitting in a government office building in North Korea. This is the story of the biggest cyber heist in history. Alright, so to understand how this went down, you need to know about SWIFT. No, not Taylor Swift. SWIFT, the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication. Catchy name, I know. SWIFT is basically the messaging system that banks use to move money around the world. When your bank needs to send $100 million to another bank in another country, they don't stuff cash into a FedEx box. They send a SWIFT message. And here's the thing. SWIFT had been running since 1973. Over 11,000 banks in 200 countries use it. It handles trillions of dollars every single day. And in its entire history, nobody had ever successfully hacked it until a group of hackers decided to try. Now, Bangladesh Bank is the central bank of Bangladesh. Think of it like their version of the Federal Reserve. And like most central banks, they keep a chunk of their foreign reserves parked at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. We're talking about billions of dollars sitting in an account in Manhattan. The hackers didn't need to break into a vault. They didn't need guns or masks or a getaway car. They just needed a password. The story actually starts a full year before the heist. January 2015. Several employees at Bangladesh Bank receive emails, normal-looking emails. One of them contains a link to download a resume and cover letter. Someone supposedly applying for a job. At least one employee clicks the link. And that's it. That single click installs malware on the bank's internal network. Now here's where it gets insane. The hackers don't do anything with that access. Not for months. They just sit there, watching, learning, mapping out the entire internal network of the Central Bank of Bangladesh. They figure out how the bank connects to SWIFT. They study the transfer protocols. They learn the names of the people who authorize payments. They even figure out which printer handles the confirmation receipts. For an entire year, these hackers are ghosts inside the system. Nobody notices a thing. And while all this reconnaissance is happening, something else is going on 8,000 kilometers away in the Philippines. In May 2015, somebody walks into a branch of Rizal Commercial Banking Corporation, RCBC, on Jupiter Street in Makati City, Manila. They open 4 bank accounts using fake identification documents, fake driver's licenses, fake everything. These accounts sit dormant for 9 months, just waiting. Now let's talk about who's behind all of this. The hackers belong to a group called Lazarus. And Lazarus isn't some ragtag crew of teenagers in a basement. They're operated by the Reconnaissance General Bureau, the RGB, which is North Korea's primary intelligence agency. Think about that for a second. A country that can barely keep its lights on is running one of the most sophisticated cyber warfare units on the planet. Bureau 121, the hacking division, reportedly has over 6,000 operatives. Many of them don't even work inside North Korea. They operate out of front companies in China, specifically in cities like Dalian and Shenyang. One of these fronts was called Chosun Expo Joint Venture. On paper, it looked like a normal software company. In reality, it was a cyber warfare outpost. And Lazarus had already made a name for themselves. In 2014, they hacked Sony Pictures, leaked unreleased movies, leaked embarrassing executive emails, all because Sony was about to release a comedy about assassinating Kim Jong-un. But the Sony hack was just practice. Now they wanted money, a lot of it. February 4th, 2016, Thursday evening in Bangladesh. But here's the clever part. It's already Friday morning in New York. Why does that matter? Because the hackers chose their timing with surgical precision. Thursday night in Bangladesh means Friday in New York. And Friday is followed by the weekend. Bangladesh Bank is closed on Friday and Saturday because of the local weekend schedule. The New York Fed is closed on Saturday and Sunday. That gives the hackers a 5-day window where nobody on either side is checking the books. At 8:36 p.m. Bangladesh time, the hackers activate their malware. They've already compromised the bank's SWIFT credentials. They send 35 payment orders to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, requesting transfers totaling $951 million, almost $1 billion, from the account of one of the poorest nations on the planet. The malware also disables that confirmation printer, so there's no paper trail printing out in real time. Now the New York Fed starts processing these orders, and here's where it gets wild. 5 of the 35 orders go through. The first batch sends $20 million to a company in Sri Lanka called the Shalika Foundation. The second batch sends $81 million to those 4 dormant accounts at the RCBC branch on Jupiter Street in Manila. But then something happens. The routing bank for the Sri Lanka transfer, Deutsche Bank, notices something off. One of the transfer orders has a typo in the beneficiary name. Instead of foundation, it says foundation. Foundation, a single misspelled word. Deutsche Bank flags the transaction and sends a query back to Bangladesh Bank. That 20 million gets frozen, but the other 81 million? It's already in the Philippines. Now what about the other 30 transfers? The ones totaling $850 million. Here's where the hackers' luck truly runs out. Some of those transfer requests were routed through accounts connected to entities that shared a name with a sanctioned vessel. The word Jupiter appeared in the routing details, which was also the name of an Iranian cargo ship under U.S. sanctions. The New York Fed's automated compliance system flagged the transfers for review. $850 million. Blocked. Because of a street name that matched a sanctioned ship. Think about that. The hackers came within a software flag of stealing nearly $1 billion. But 81 million is still missing. And in Manila, the money is moving fast. On February 5th, the 81 million hits the RCBC Jupiter Street accounts. A branch manager named Maya Santos de Guito processes the transactions. The money is quickly converted from US dollars to Philippine pesos through a remittance company called Philrem. From Philrem, the cash flows into 2 Manila casinos, the Solaire Resort and Casino, and the Midas Hotel and Casino. At the time, casinos in the Philippines were exempt from anti-money laundering laws. The hackers knew this. The money gets churned through casino junket operators, gambling tables, and VIP rooms. It gets converted into chips, played a few times, cashed back out. Classic laundering. A Chinese-Filipino businessman named Cam Sin Wong becomes a central figure in moving the money through these channels. By the time Bangladesh Bank reopens and discovers the missing funds, most of the money is gone, scattered across casino accounts, converted into foreign currency, and wired out to unknown destinations. Bangladesh Bank's governor, Atir Rahman, quietly resigns in March 2016. He'd been governor for 7 years and had to step down over what amounts to the biggest bank robbery in history happening on his watch. The Philippines launches a Senate investigation. It gets messy, really messy. Maya Santos de Guito, the RCBC branch manager, gets convicted on 8 counts of money laundering in 2019. She claims she was just following orders. The court doesn't buy it. RCBC itself gets hit with a record 1 billion peso fine, about $21 million, by the Philippine Central Bank, the largest penalty ever imposed on a Philippine bank. But here's the part that'll make your head spin. Of the $81 million stolen, Bangladesh recovered roughly 18 million. That's it. 18 out of 81. The rest? Gone. Dissolved into the casino underworld of Southeast Asia. Now the FBI gets involved, and their investigation leads somewhere nobody expected. In September 2018, the U.S. Department of Justice unseals a criminal complaint against a North Korean programmer named Park Jin-hyuk. According to the FBI, Park was a member of the Lazarus Group who worked out of Chosun Expo joint venture in Dalian, China. The complaint is wild. It connects Park not just to the Bangladesh bank heist, but also to the Sony Pictures hack and the WannaCry ransomware attack in 2017, the one that crippled the British National Health Service and hit over 200,000 computers in 150 countries. All the same group, all the same government, all funded by Pyongyang. In February 2021, the DOJ expands the indictment. 3 North Korean military hackers, John Chang-hyuk, Kim Il, and Park Jin-hyuk, are charged with conspiring to steal and extort over $1.3 billion in cash and cryptocurrency from banks and businesses worldwide. But here's the ultimate irony. None of them will ever see the inside of a courtroom. They're in North Korea, a country with no extradition treaty with anyone. The FBI literally has Park Jin-hyuk on their most wanted cyber list, and there's absolutely nothing they can do about it. U.S. officials believe it went directly into funding North Korea's weapons programs. Ballistic missiles, nuclear warheads, paid for with money stolen from one of the poorest countries on Earth. And the SWIFT network. It got a security upgrade. But the fundamental vulnerability, that the entire global banking system runs on trust, never really went away. Bangladesh Bank eventually patched its systems. They installed proper firewalls, fixed the printer. But the Lazarus Group didn't stop. They pivoted to cryptocurrency. In 2022, they stole $620 million from the Ronin network, an Ethereum sidechain connected to the video game Axie Infinity. They're still out there, still hacking, still stealing, and still sending every dollar back to Pyongyang. So let me get this straight. A group of hackers, backed by one of the most isolated governments on Earth, infiltrated a central bank with a phishing email. They sat inside the system for a year. They timed their attack to exploit a gap in the global weekend calendar. They set up fake bank accounts 9 months in advance. They laundered the money through casinos that were legally exempt from anti-money laundering laws. And the only reason they didn't walk away with nearly $1 billion was because they misspelled a word and a street name happened to match a sanctioned ship. That's not a heist movie. That's real life. It tells you something about the world we live in. The biggest bank robbery in history didn't involve a single gun, a single mask, or a single person stepping inside a bank. Just a keyboard, an internet connection, and one employee who clicked the wrong link. If this story blew your mind, drop a like, subscribe if you want more stories like this, and let me know in the comments, do you think they'll ever catch these guys? I'll see you in the next one.